I'd like to ask Andrew Bonfield to come to the stage and just share a few words on why he personally is involved in our work. Thanks, Andrew.
Good afternoon, everybody. And 5 years ago, would I have been here on this stage? Answer, no. I used to pray to God and thank the world for my sister, who was actually helping to build an eco-village down in Australia for actually offsetting my carbon footprint as an individual. So, I would never have been sustainability, environmental factors, didn't really matter to me. It was all about the pursuit of profit. I first became a public company CFO 15 years ago. I was very young, but it was an environment where we were chasing the bottom line. The world has changed, and I think as we stand here today, as CFOs, we need to recognize that. We are now part of society. We can no longer sit here, be immune. First of all, the financial crisis changed things dramatically. It's our customers, it's our employees, it's our stakeholders. We still are lingering with the effects of the financial crisis today. Trusts in companies are at an all-time low. We still have issues out there around about actually how we live in an age of austerity. And public trust in us as individuals, as businessmen, needs to be rebuilt. We've also seen large environmental issues like Deepwater Horizon. The fact I was actually in the US at the time watching CNN for days on end with the oil seeping to the surface makes you realize that actually things have become in a 24-hour news cycle. No longer as companies can we be immune from the reputational damage that causes. A very good friend of mine and a former colleague is the General Counsel of BP, and his life has become transformed as a result of that single event. He has spent most of his time dealing with the consequences and the fallout of that. And then finally, I'm actually chairman of the 100 Group Tax Committee, and one of the things I've spent for the last 3 or 4 years spending a lot of time on is corporate tax avoidance. The only time I have ever been quoted on a front page of a newspaper is about corporate tax avoidance. Nothing to do with my business. It's to do with our companies playing their part in society and paying fair taxes. So as CFOs, we've got to look around and say, this is an impact. It impacts our customers. We saw that with the boycotts of certain companies as a result of the tax avoidance issues. We see it as people's attitudes to us, and we see it about as our employee attitudes to us. This is not just CSR. This is about how do we actually make sure that we deliver the bottom lines that our shareholders want. Now, we can all sit here behind the silk screen and say, but investors aren't really interested in that. The CSR guys are over there. The rest of them are over here, and they only ask us questions about strategy and risk and about our business performance. Well, can I just say to you, if sustainability is not part of your company strategy, how long do you expect to be around for? As institutions and bodies and companies, we need to look around for the long term. Short term, yes, we all have short-term pressures, but ultimately at the end of the day, we want to build businesses that last for the longer term, and our investors want to invest in businesses that last for the long term. So we need to manage that gap, and it's up to us, as we go through our engagement with our investors, to actually engage them in that discussion and debate. At the end of the day, I've never had a discussion with an investor where actually they've told me to take a very short-term view rather than take a long-term sustainable view of how we operate a business. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, unless they're very short-term focused, they actually want us to be there for the long term as well. That actually is good business, it's good investment for them, and ultimately that's really what we should be aiming our goals and targets at. So as I look out and some of the things that have changed, and as I think through in my business activities and career, there are a couple of things that I look at and sort of say, well, how do we think about these things when we're actually doing our investment appraisals? So I worked for 2 years at a company called BG Group, which is an exploration and production oil and gas company. So that was between 2001 2002. We used a base case assumption for oil prices of $18 a barrel real. What's the oil price today? $60 a barrel. What was it 6 months ago, $110 a barrel. Fundamentally, anybody using $18 a barrel real was not using a realistic assumption. How do we then build that risk and uncertainty into our financial projections? Second part, commodity pricing. I work for Cadbury. Cadbury, everybody's favorite chocolate here in the UK. Very strong need to grow into emerging markets. Effectively looking at innovative products as a way of actually going into those markets, because that was going to drive our long-term sustainable growth. I don't know if any of you read recently, but there's recent warnings about the cocoa crop. The cocoa can only be grown in a certain number of countries in the world. Most of the crop actually grows in Ghana and the Ivory Coast. Obviously, there's issues around Ebola down in those particular areas as well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there is actually a drought, which is actually potentially destroying the cocoa crop. Increases in world demand, plus then the fact that you have a potential drought, your business strategy has just gone out the door if you're selling chocolate. The only way you can do it is keep resizing bars, but if you're trying to introduce people to chocolate in emerging markets where you have single bite-sized products, how can you do that in that environment? So again, we've got to start looking at these and thinking through them. As the chief risk officers, which we're often considered to be, is not just chief financial officers, some of these things and questions we should be asking not only ourselves, but also our investment advisors and others. How do they think through these things and issues as we move forward? National Grid, we have made a couple of strides in recent years. A couple of years ago, we actually had set up a sustainability summit. Stakeholder became a bigger part of our new regulation a couple of years ago. We invited external stakeholders in, and also employees and actually young people in to talk to us about how do we make our business more sustainable. Well, the output of that sustainability summit actually was a target of 100% of recycling of all the old towers and wires that we operate and use pylons you see through the country. We never had that in the past. We never thought of it. It wasn't part of our business model. But it makes good business sense, saves customers money, ultimately, at the end of the day, and actually makes us meet some of our environmental targets. Another area is around social capital, is areas of outstanding natural beauty. Many of you here in the UK may have read recently, we've actually announced that we're investing £500 million in actually taking down 67 pylons through areas of outstanding natural beauty. We actually got a number of stakeholders involved to look at that. What were the key areas? We could spend a lot more. And in fact, actually, some of the media comments about it was actually for 22p on a bill a year. Although people feel very austere and very anti-large increases in energy bills, that may be something that society is willing to pay for in order to have the visual amenity that they would see. So it is there, it's part of our businesses, it's there for us to go for. Often as CFOs, we tend to hide behind, well, it's not in our financial, it's not in financial accounting standards, so we don't have to worry about it. It's not something that we can do, we can't account for it, it's too difficult, it's too complex. We often hide behind that. I'm not sure that actually now that we can really hide behind it anymore. As finance leaders, we need to be party to this discussion. We can't sit back and wait. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it is going to damage our businesses for the long term. And we need to be in that situation where we can actually drive this and drive this agenda forward. And I really sincerely believe and sincerely hope that everybody here will actually take on that call to action. I think it's really important. It's not just about now and the short term, it's the long term. It's building a sustainable business model that we can all be proud of and actually then engage our customers and our employees and ultimately our shareholders because it's good for them as well. But we need to educate them. We can't just always sit back and say investors aren't interested. We need to make them interested, and that is where I have a responsibility as a CFO, and all of us who own the financial community have that. Thank you very much.